We all know color, right? I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But have you ever thought about why blue makes you feel calm or red gets your heart racing?
Hmm.
That's what we're going to dive into today.
That's right.
The fascinating world of color psychology.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of research and insights
You'll be amazed
to unpack.
by just how much color impacts us every single day.
Before we get to the psychology of all the different colors,
Yeah.
let's start with the basics.
Okay.
How do our brains even see color anyway?
Well, it all starts with light.
Okay.
Color isn't actually in objects themselves. It's
Yeah.
all about how our eyes see wavelengths of light.
So red apple isn't actually red.
Exactly.
It just reflects red wavelengths.
It's reflecting those red wavelengths.
Wow.
And a black object absorbs most wavelengths,
Okay.
which is why it looks dark.
Makes sense.
And a white object does the opposite. It reflects most wavelengths.
Oh, so that's why it looks bright.
Exactly.
That's so cool. I've always wondered about this. Why do we see more variation in warm colors,
Oh, good question.
like reds and oranges?
It has to do with the structure of our eyes.
Okay.
We have these special cells called cones,
Right.
responsible for color vision,
Uh-huh.
and we have more cones that are sensitive to those warm colors.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's probably why our peripheral vision,
Right.
which relies on those rods,
Yeah.
is less colorful.
Right.
It's like,
It is. Yeah.
built-in night vision.
Exactly.
And it's worth mentioning that
Uh-huh.
while most of us see the full spectrum of color,
Right.
color blindness is actually pretty common.
Very common.
Yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
it's estimated that something like 8% of men
Wow.
and 0.5% of women have some form of color vision deficiency.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even know they have it.
It's true. We all experience color a little differently.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got how we see color,
Okay.
but how do we actually use it effectively?
That's where color theory comes in.
Okay, and
It provides a framework for understanding how colors work together and how to create harmonious combinations.
so like a set of guidelines.
Exactly.
Okay, so who uses this?
Artists, designers,
Mm-hmm.
marketers,
Uh-huh.
even nature itself uses color theory
Okay,
to
yeah.
create those stunning visual displays.
More than just ROY-GBV.
It is, yeah.
What are some of the key concepts
Well,
we should know?
the color wheel,
Okay.
it's definitely the foundation.
Uh-huh.
It helps us visualize those relationships between colors,
Right.
starting with the primary colors,
Right.
red, yellow, and blue,
Those can be mixed
They
to
can.
create every other color.
but every other one.
And then secondary colors,
Yes.
like orange, green, and violet,
Right.
created by mixing two primary.
Exactly.
But then we get into tertiary colors.
Yeah, those are fun to say.
I love those.
Yeah.
Like red, violet, blue,
A
green.
violet, red, orange.
They add even more richness to the whole spectrum. But color theory is more than just identifying colors.
Right.
It helps us understand
Yeah.
concepts like color temperature.
Exactly.
Okay.
So warm colors like red and orange
Yeah.
feel more energetic, while cool colors
Well,
like blue and green,
Mm.
those are more calming.
but I remember you saying
Yes.
the color temperature is relative, right?
It is.
It all depends on the surrounding colors.
Exactly.
A color can look warmer or cooler depending on what's next to it.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's all about contrast.
So a blue might appear cool next to yellow,
Yeah.
but next to purple it could look warm.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Okay.
I also remember struggling with this in art class.
Oh, yeah.
Shades, tints, and tones. Can you break those down for us?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
A shade is created by adding black
Okay.
to a hue.
Uh-huh.
A tint is adding white.
Okay.
And a tone is adding both
Oh.
black and white.
Okay.
So you get a more muted tone.
Or desaturated version.
So like burgundy is a shade of red,
Exactly.
pink is a tint,
Right.
and mauve is a tone of purple.
Perfect.
Okay, that actually makes a lot more sense now.
Good.
It's interesting how just black or white can totally change the feeling of a color.
It can. Yeah.
Like a deep blue might convey sophistication,
Uh-huh.
but a light blue might be more peaceful.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got the basics of color theory down.
Yes.
I'm ready to dive into the psychology of it all.
Yeah.
What about the emotional impact of different colors?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Each color
Mm-hmm.
has its own set of psychological associations.
Influenced by biology, culture, even personal experience.
Yeah.
And research shows
It does.
these associations
Yeah.
can influence our behavior.
That's right.
Okay, let's start with red.
Okay.
It's the color of love, anger, danger.
It's got it all.
Why does it evoke such strong emotions?
Well, studies have shown
Yeah.
that red can actually increase our heart rate? Wow.
And our blood pressure.
Hmm.
It's the most physiologically stimulating color,
Oh.
which explains the connection to passion,
Right.
but also
Yeah.
aggression.
So our body's reacting, not just our mind.
It is.
That's wild.
Yeah,
It's also the color of power and confidence.
it is.
Like a red power tie.
Yeah.
Or a red carpet.
Exactly.
Red demands attention.
That's right.
And in nature,
Uh-huh.
red is often a warning sign.
Yes.
Poisonous berries, stop signs.
Right. Danger?
Okay, so red is high impact.
It is.
What about something more subtle,
Okay.
like cognac?
Cognac
Yeah, I love the richness
is rich.
and warmth of that hue.
It's all about refined luxury,
Mm.
sophistication.
It's named after the brandy.
It is.
Makes sense.
It shares that warmth and richness.
Speaking of colors with boozy origins,
Yeah.
what about burgundy?
Burgundy.
Yeah, it's always so mysterious
It is.
and intriguing.
Burgundy is a fascinating color. It's sophisticated.
Associated with high society
Right.
tradition,
Uh-huh.
but it can also have a darker, more sensual side, like velvet burgundy curtains
Yeah.
or a deep burgundy wine.
It draws you in.
It does.
So burgundy can be luxurious,
Yeah.
but also dangerous.
Absolutely.
What about maroon?
Maroon.
Yeah, it seems overshadowed
Yeah.
by red and brown.
It's got its own unique energy, though.
It does. It does.
Maroon is powerful.
Hmm.
It combines the warmth of red with the groundedness of brown.
Okay.
It's exciting,
Uh-huh.
courageous,
Right.
and research has shown
Yeah.
that maroon can stimulate the appetite,
Really?
which is why you see it in a lot of restaurants.
That's interesting.
It is.
Now, for a color that really surprised me,
Oh, yeah.
magenta.
Magenta.
It's artificial.
It is.
Our brains basically invent it.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Magenta doesn't exist on the light spectrum.
Wow.
Our brains create it by blending red and violet wavelengths.
It's the rebel of the color world.
It is.
Okay, now for pink,
Pink.
often associated with femininity,
Right.
sweetness.
Yes.
But I read that in some cultures,
Yeah.
it's actually considered masculine.
It is a great example of
Mm.
how color is influenced by culture. So in the West, it's feminine,
Yeah.
innocent, playful.
Mhm.
But other parts of the world,
Hmm.
it can symbolize strength,
Wow.
masculinity.
That really highlights
Yeah.
how subjective color can be.
Absolutely.
What about purple?
Purple.
It's always had that royal,
Right.
luxurious feel,
It has.
but it also has a mystical side.
It does. Purple has a long history
Hmm.
in ancient times.
Yeah.
Purple dye was really expensive
Wow.
and difficult to make.
Okay.
So it was only for royalty and the elite.
That's probably why we still see it as luxurious
It is.
and powerful.
Yeah.
It's amazing how color can keep that meaning
Uh-huh.
for centuries.
It is, yeah.
I've always loved the shade mauve.
No.
It's so delicate and dreamy.
It's a special color.
What's the story behind that one?
Mauve was the first synthetic dye
Oh, wow.
ever created.
Wow.
So this was the mid-19th century. It completely changed the textile industry
Okay.
and made purple accessible to everyone.
So mauve democratized purple.
It did.
It still has that innovative feel.
It does.
What about violet?
Violet.
It's such a vibrant
It is.
and enigmatic hue.
Yeah.
What makes it so special?
Violet is unique
Right.
because it sits right on the edge
Okay.
of the visible light spectrum.
Wow.
The shortest wavelength our eyes can see.
Mm-hmm.
It has that otherworldly, mysterious feel.
Okay.
It's often associated with spirituality,
Right.
intuition,
Hmm.
higher consciousness.
Like the color of dreams.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered the warmer colors.
Yeah,
But there's a whole other side
there is
to the spectrum to explore.
where we'll get there.
Speaking of the cooler side of the spectrum, let's talk blue.
Oh, blue.
Yeah, it's the most popular favorite color worldwide.
It is.
And for good reason, right?
Yeah.
It's calming.
It is.
Bruh.
Peaceful.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why hospitals and doctors' offices
Okay.
often use blue.
Interesting.
Studies show
Yeah.
that blue can lower our heart rate and our blood pressure.
Wow.
So it really does create that feeling of tranquility
Mhm.
and promotes relaxation.
It really is the opposite of red in that sense.
It is.
And blue's also associated with trust,
Right.
dependability.
Think about it.
Hmm.
The color of a police uniform
Okay.
or a business suit.
Yeah, they project authority,
Kinda.
competence.
Right. So it makes sense
Ah.
that it's used in branding and marketing.
Especially for companies that want to convey stability,
Absolutely.
reliability.
Right.
I'm starting to see color psychology everywhere now.
You are.
Okay, so blue is calm.
Yes.
And trust.
What about periwinkle?
Oh, periwinkle.
Such a delicate, whimsical shade.
Periwinkle's like a breath of fresh air.
It is.
It evokes nostalgia, innocence.
And enduring love.
Yeah, it's often used in weddings,
Okay.
romantic settings.
It does have that light and airy quality.
Exactly.
Sweet but sophisticated.
Right.
And then there's turquoise.
Turquoise.
Reminds me of tropical oceans.
It's so vibrant.
It is.
It's refreshing.
What's the psychology there?
Turquoise combines blue and green.
Okay.
The calm of blue with that energy of green.
Interesting.
So it's about balance,
Okay.
self-reflection.
Positive growth.
And because it's so rare in nature,
Right.
it feels precious
It does.
and exotic.
I can see why people use it for jewelry,
Yeah,
home decor.
absolutely.
It's that pop of color, but not overwhelming.
Right.
What about teal?
Teal.
Yeah, another blue-green.
It is.
A little different.
Yeah, teal's a bit more introspective than turquoise.
Okay.
It encourages contemplation, reflection.
It's very grounding.
It is.
Calming and sophisticated.
Yes.
I'm realizing there's so much more to color
There's.
than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've explored the blues.
Right.
Now let's move on to green.
Okay, green.
Obviously associated with nature.
Yeah.
But what else is there?
Green is about vitality,
Okay.
growth,
Uh,
renewal.
it's the color of spring.
It is.
New beginnings.
Right. Abundance.
It has that balancing effect
It does.
on our nervous system.
Creates a sense of harmony,
Yeah.
well-being.
It's often used in hospitals,
Yeah.
healthcare settings.
To promote healing
Right.
and relaxation.
So green can be calming,
Yes,
but also invigorating.
it can.
And it's associated with money.
It is.
Prosperity.
Think of dollar bills.
Right.
The phrase green with envy.
It's growth and abundance. Yeah.
Exactly, both literally and figuratively.
It's the color of life.
Yes.
Abundance. What about chartreuse?
Chartreuse, such a bold,
It's,
vibrant hue.
I love that it's named after a liqueur.
It is made by monks.
What does chartreuse say psychologically?
Chartreuse is all about creativity,
Okay.
individuality.
Pushing boundaries.
Yes, inspiring action.
Encouraging us to embrace our uniqueness.
Right, and because it's unconventional,
Yeah.
it can be seen as rebellious.
It's definitely not a wallflower color.
It's not.
Okay, let's move on to yellow,
Yeah.
the color of sunshine.
It is.
It's hard not to feel happy when you see yellow.
Right.
What's going on there?
Yellow is all about optimism,
Okay.
joy, mental clarity.
It's the most visible color
It is.
to the human eye.
Yeah, which is why it's used for warning signs.
Right. Safety gear.
But it also stimulates
Yeah.
the left side of the brain.
Interesting.
It's like for logic,
I'd love-
analytical thinking.
So yellow can boost our brain power.
It can.
Wow. But I've also heard too much yellow can be overwhelming. It can even cause anxiety.
It's true. Yellow can be a bit much.
Okay.
It's very stimulating.
It needs to be balanced with other colors.
It does.
Now, for a color that always makes me feel good,
Oh, yeah.
orange.
Orange.
Such a happy and inviting color.
It is.
What's the psychology behind orange?
Orange is all about social connection, communication.
Creativity.
Yes, it's the color of warmth,
Okay.
enthusiasm.
It encourages self-expression,
It does.
fosters that sense of community.
It combines the energy of red
Right.
with the cheerfulness of yellow.
The perfect blend
Yes.
of passion and optimism.
Right, and I've heard that orange
Yeah.
can stimulate the appetite.
Really?
Think about fast food restaurants.
Okay.
How many of them use orange?
That's interesting.
It is.
So orange is socializing,
Right.
creativity,
Yeah.
and maybe a few extra fries.
Maybe.
What about brown?
Brown.
It's a color that often gets overlooked, but it has its own quiet strength.
It does, yeah.
What's the psychology behind brown?
Brown is about stability,
Okay.
reliability.
A connection to nature.
Yeah, it's the color of the earth.
Right. Wood.
Wood, leather.
Yeah. It evokes warmth.
It
It's a
does.
sense of belonging.
And because it's associated with natural materials, it can convey authenticity,
It can.
craftsmanship.
Absolutely.
Brown can be very comforting,
Yeah.
grounding.
Like a warm hug from Mother Nature,
It is.
but it can also feel a little
Yeah.
boring sometimes.
Or even depressing.
It's true. Brown can feel dull
Well,
or heavy.
if it's not used right,
Right.
too much brown can create stagnation.
Yeah.
But when balanced,
It creates warmth.
yeah, richness. It becomes inviting.
It does.
Sophisticated.
Right, finding that balance.
Balance is key.
It is.
Let's move on to gray.
Gray.
A color that gets a bad rap.
It does.
But I've always found it elegant.
Yeah.
Gray is often misunderstood. It's about neutrality balance.
Okay.
Sophistication.
Yes, it doesn't demand attention,
Right.
but it provides calm stability.
It's the color of compromise.
It is.
Finding that middle ground.
So gray can be calming,
Uh-huh.
but also melancholic.
It's become very popular for home decor.
It has.
Why do you think that is?
I think people are drawn to it because it provides a break from all the overstimulation.
Right. Modern life is a lot.
It is.
So it's a neutral backdrop for other colors to shine.
And it creates peace, tranquility.
Encourages introspection.
Yeah.
Reflection.
Exactly.
What about taupe?
Taupe?
It's hard to describe, but
Yeah.
always sophisticated?
It is.
Understated.
Taupe is subtle, nuanced,
Okay.
embodies practicality.
And warmth.
It's a blend of brown and gray, so it has that earthiness, groundedness.
It blends in.
It does, but adds a touch of elegance.
Yeah, sophistication.
Okay, we've covered the lighter side,
We have.
but we can't forget black and white.
Right.
Let's start with black.
Black.
Both feared and revered.
Yeah.
What makes it so powerful?
Black holds a lot of weight. Symbolically.
Go.
It's associated with power,
History.
mystery, sophistication.
Maybe death.
It can be alluring,
Intimidating.
elegant.
Elegant,
It can
yeah.
be minimalist, but also dramatic.
It can.
And I've noticed black
Yeah.
creates a sense of luxury,
No.
exclusivity.
Black has a long history with high-end fashion
Or
design.
it's like a little black dress.
Yeah, a sleek black car.
It conveys sophistication,
It does.
timelessness.
That's classic.
What about ebony?
Ebony.
It's like black's intense cousin.
It is. Ebony is a deep, rich black.
Evokes depth.
It does.
It does.
It's often associated with wisdom,
Okay.
strength, resilience.
Yeah.
And because it's the color of ebony wood,
Right.
it also has that sense of quality,
Yeah.
longevity.
It's black, but with wisdom.
Right. Sophistication. And finally, we have white,
White.
the color of purity.
It is.
New beginnings.
What comes to mind with white?
Innocence.
Innocence.
Yeah. Cleanliness.
The simplicity.
It's a blank slate.
It is.
Fresh snow.
A new beginning.
It can create a sense of spaciousness, airiness,
Right. Makes a room feel bigger.
brighter.
Exactly.
But white can also be calming,
it can.
but a bit sterile.
It can, yeah.
And it's often used in hospitals,
It is.
healthcare settings.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it conveys that sense of cleanliness,
It does.
sterility,
Yeah, and it creates calm and order.
which is helpful
It is.
in a stressful environment.
Absolutely.
Each color has such a unique
They do.
set of psychological associations,
Right?
and they can be used to create specific moods.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I'm seeing color in a whole new light now.
You are?
It's like unlocking a secret code.
It is.
Once you understand the language of color, you can use it
Okay.
to your advantage.
In all areas of life.
Absolutely.
I'm already thinking about my own home.
Oh, yeah.
How can I use color to make it more calming,
Right.
inspiring?
Absolutely. But what about beyond our homes?
Okay.
Color psychology and branding.
Okay, in marketing.
Yeah. Companies spend millions
Wow.
researching color psychology.
To make sure their branding is right.
Right. It has to resonate.
Yeah, with their audience.
Yeah.
It makes sense you wouldn't see a bank
Right.
using bright pink.
Or a fast food chain using dark brown.
Exactly. Think about those calming blues in financial institutions
Right.
or the red and yellow
Yeah.
of fast food restaurants.
Those colors are chosen to evoke specific emotions,
Wow.
associations.
It's all subconscious.
And
We might not even realize why we're drawn to certain brands.
that's why it's so important to be mindful of the colors we surround ourselves with,
Mm.
from the clothes we wear
Yeah.
to the paint on our walls.
Color can impact our mood,
Absolutely.
our behavior.
It can.
I'm definitely going to pay more attention now.
Good.
It's amazing how something so simple
Right.
can be so complex.
It is. It speaks to the power of our senses.
Yeah.
How deeply they're connected to our emotions and perceptions.
Okay, we've covered a lot today.
We have.
But before we wrap up,
Okay.
one last question.
Yeah.
If you could invent a new color,
Oh, wow.
what would you call it?
Okay.
What would it make people feel?
Let me think.
Okay.
I think I would call it
Of etheria?
Etheria?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would shimmer
Hmm.
and shift depending on the light,
Okay.
like a blue and violet mix.
Interesting.
And it would evoke wonder,
Okay.
tranquility,
Mm-hmm.
limitless possibility.
Yeah.
Etheria? I love it.
Yeah.
It sounds like the color of dreams.
It does.
It does.
A fitting way to end our deep dive.
It is.
Because color is all about exploring those possibilities.
Of human perception,
Yeah.
emotion.
Exactly.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of our colorful journey today.
It does.
Thank you so much
You're welcome.
for sharing all this with us.
My pleasure.
I feel like I've learned a whole new language.
Good. And remember,
Okay.
the world is full of color.
Yeah.
Pay attention
Hmm.
to the hues that speak to you.
Okay.
Explore the emotions.
Yeah.
Let your creativity flow.
That's great advice.
Thanks.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Of course.
Until next time, stay colorful. All right. Ready to dive in. We're tackling brand identity today.
Awesome.
And we've got a great jumping off point with these excerpts from Brand Identity Essentials. That's 100 Principles for Designing Logos and Building Brands.
Perfect. This deep dive, it's going to be like we're sneaking backstage.
Yeah.
Seeing how those big brands, the ones we all know, how they make us feel a certain way.
Right. It's more than just the logo itself.
Way more. It's design. It's the whole experience they create.
Like instead of just watching the movie, we're seeing how they made it.
Exactly. And the book starts out smart. It breaks down like, what's the difference between a logo and identity program?
And a brand.
Yeah, because we think they're all the same, but
But they're not.
not at all. Think of it like this. The logo, that's just the picture. Then, how they use that picture everywhere, that's the identity program.
Okay.
But the feeling you get as a customer from all of that, that's the brand.
So the logo's like the actor. The
Yeah.
identity program's the script, the director.
And the brand is like the whole movie experience. Did you love it? Did you hate it?
Makes sense. A bad movie, you walk out feeling, ugh.
Same with a bad brand. You're just like, nope. Like Apple, their logo, it's not about fruit,
Yeah.
right? Every time you interact with them, they're building this feeling of we're innovative, we're simple, the products, the stores, everything's sleek.
Makes you think, man, I got to get me some of that.
Totally. And speaking of logos, the book goes deep on all the different types. I was surprised there are so many.
Me too. More than I ever realized.
Yeah, you've got illustrative logos, for one. Some are super literal, like a toothbrush if you're a dentist.
Straight to the point. No need to get fancy.
Sometimes that's best. But then they can be symbolic, too. Like, you know that Mayflower moving company?
Yeah, with the ship,
That's hinting at history, trustworthiness.
you're moving your whole life. You want that feeling.
Right. And then there's abstract illustrative logos. The Nike swoosh, for example.
It doesn't really look like a shoe.
Nope, but it's about the idea. Motion, speed, athleticism.
Captures the brand feeling perfectly.
Exactly. Okay, so that's illustrative. Then you've got photographic logos.
Ooh, those can be tough.
Yeah.
Bad photo. And you look cheap.
Totally. The book uses gourmet settings as an example. They use these like artsy close-ups of their forks and knives.
Making silverware fancy.
Like, this ain't just a fork, this is an experience.
Clever. What else is there?
Monograms and word marks. Those use just the letters, the typography to show personality.
I love a good word mark.
Yeah.
Google, Coca-Cola. Clean, professional.
Iconic. When your name's that strong, it works. The book says monograms can get fancy too, like old crests or those varsity letters.
Adding some flair.
Exactly. Okay, now we got to talk color. That's huge for brand, right?
Huge. But color psychology always seemed kind of, I don't know, mystical to me.
It's a whole field. It's how colors make us feel. Blues often trust, reliability. That's why banks use it.
And a lot of tech companies, too, I've noticed.
Makes sense. Blues also communication, technology. Think Twitter's bird, the glow of your computer.
Huh. Never thought of it like that. But color can be tricky, too, right? Different cultures.
Oh, huge differences. Like white here, it's pure, innocent. But in some places, it's mourning.
Wow. Gotta be kidding.
Big time. And color trends change too. What's hot today?
Tomorrow it's dated.
Yep. Okay, so logos, colors. What else visually shapes a brand?
Good question.
Shapes. The shape of the logo itself matters.
The shape. Never really thought about that.
Circles, they feel friendly. Squares, stable. Triangles, energetic. Each one gives a different vibe.
So like a tech company that wants to seem approachable uses a circle.
You got it. And good brands, they use the shape beyond the logo, patterns, window designs, all echoing that same shape.
Creates a whole look.
Exactly. Say you had a sun logo that circles in your windows on labels.
It all ties together.
Exactly. Okay, so logos, colors, shapes. What about the brand story?
That's what gets me, how they use all this to tell a story that you, connect with. The book's right. Logos can be storytellers.
Totally. Going beyond just the name, creating a feeling.
Like that beach chair logo. It's not furniture, it's relaxation, good times.
Selling a lifestyle. Yep. And smart brands, their stories in everything. Their website, the music in their store, how employees talk to you.
It's all got to match.
It's a whole world they're building, like taking that flat logo.
And making it 3D, yeah. You walk in and feel it.
The book gives an example, a logo with a rainbow. It becomes actual banners in their space.
Bringing it to life.
Right. So we've talked about keeping the brand consistent, but how much can a logo change and still be, recognizable? Ooh, good one. It's like staying true to yourself, but also keeping things fresh. MTV was great at this. Their logo, it morphed all the time to fit different shows.
They were wild.
It felt exciting, like anything could happen, but change it too much.
And people don't know who you are anymore.
Exactly. It's tricky. And this ties into personalization, which is huge now. How much can a customer mess with the logo and make it their own?
Without breaking the brand, yeah.
Big question for designers. Okay, but before we go there, think about this. The world is full of logos. How do you stand out?
Right. Everyone's screaming for attention.
So sometimes you don't compete head on. Like Avis, the rental car, they owned being #2. We try harder because we're not the best.
Clever. You got to find your angle.
And sometimes the best angle is just being honest. The book talks about this. Authenticity's big now. People smell a fake a mile away.
Totally. Some brands, they try too hard to be cool.
And it backfires. You got to build trust, be genuine. People want real, not some corporate robot.
Yeah, I want to know there are humans behind the brand.
Right. The book interviews this furniture company CEO. His whole brand is about being real. The name's his granddaughters. Everything's handcrafted.
That's sweet. Okay, but let's get practical for a sec. How do you protect your logo once you've got this amazing design?
Trademarking. And it's not just about copying, it's about proving your design is unique. Especially now, there's so much out there.
You got to stake your claim.
And keep an eye on things. But, the world's gone digital. How do brands even keep up?
Right. Social media changed everything.
Huge shift. It's like logos used to be on paper. Now they're pixels on a screen. Could be tiny, could be giant.
It's a whole other world.
And that's where things get really interesting.
I'm ready for it. Let's go.
So the digital world, right, it really is everything's different now for logos.
Totally different. My logo's got to look good on a billboard.
Huge.
But then also tiny on my website tab. How's a designer supposed to keep up?
It's a challenge. Remember how we said design in black and white first? That's even more important now.
So it's strong no matter what.
But digital, it brings its own stuff to the table,
Like what?
Resolution, for one. Print, that's super high quality, but screens.
Not so much.
And color. We've gone from a few inks to millions of colors on a screen.
So many options, but
you got to get it right. The book talks about those tiny favicons, the little website icons.
yeah.
Imagine fitting your logo in a 16 by 16 pixel square.
That's microscopic design.
It's why simple, clear logos win, but digital's not all bad news. It's exciting too.
How so?
We can do animation now, make logos interactive, add sound, things you couldn't do on paper.
Logos come to life, basically. Like a logo that makes a sound when you hover over it.
Totally. And this is where online identity programs get cool. Remember how we said brands make their story 3D in their stores?
Yeah.
They do that online too, but with websites, social media, emails.
Creating that whole world, but online.
And it's not just the brand talking ATU anymore. Social media, people talk be back.
It's a conversation.
Exactly. The book says it's a flat world now. Brands and customers are in the same space.
Some brands got to be ready to, actually talk to people.
They're responsive, yeah.
Yeah.
A fancy logo ain't enough anymore.
Nope, you got to be real. I can spot those brands trying too hard a mile away.
Oh, totally. Forcing it never works. You got to be genuine online. That's how you build trust.
Show there are actual humans behind the brand.
Because if people don't trust you online.
They're clicking away to someone they trust.
Exactly. Okay, but with all this digital stuff, how do you even protect your brand legally?
It feels like anyone could just steal your logo online.
It's tricky, for sure. The book talks about trademarking, intellectual property, but that's a whole other deep dive.
Probably.
But the idea is the same as offline. Make your logo unique, register it, and be careful who's using it.
But online, being careful means.
It's way more than just watching your own website. What if customers start using your logo?
Oh, right. Like in their own posts and stuff.
That's brand engagement, but it's hard to control.
The brand's not just the companies anymore, it's partly the customers too.
Whoa, right. It's new territory. Brands are still figuring this out. But one thing's for sure, the old rules.
They're out the window.
Yep. We need a whole new playbook for the digital age. Okay, before we go too far, remember we mentioned ingredient branding earlier.
Vaguely, yeah. Remind me what that was.
It's when you have multiple logos together representing one thing, like Intel Inside. You see that on tons of computers.
Right.
It makes those computers seem more reliable because they've got Intel too.
But doesn't that get visually confusing? So many logos.
The trick is hierarchy. You got to show which logo's the boss and which ones are just supporting actors.
So there's a main logo, and then the others add extra info.
And the book says those extra logos often talk about features, specific benefits.
Like if my clothes use some fancy fabric, I put that fabric's logo there too.
Perfect example. It adds credibility, but it's not overwhelming.
It's like logos aren't just for the brand name anymore, they're explaining stuff too.
Exactly. Which brings us to standards. Just like we said, one logo needs rules on how to use it.
Consistency, right.
When you've got multiple logos, you need rules for that too. Spacing, sizes, all that.
Can't just throw them together randomly. Nope, it's still got to look unified. Okay, we've covered a lot, T. Digital identity, ingredient branding. My brain's full.
Mine too. But it's so cool seeing logos this way. Like, I never thought about all this before.
And that's what's great about this book. It makes you think critically. Logos aren't just pretty, they're tools.
Powerful tools.
Okay,
And in the digital world.
you got to use them right or you'll get lost.
So where do we go from here? We've laid the groundwork, but
Now we see how it all works in the real world.
ooh, like actual brands doing this stuff well. You got it. We'll analyze them, see how they built their identity, and how that connects with their customers.
Let's do it. I'm ready for some inspiration.
Ah,
Okay, let's see some brands put all this into practice. Real world examples, hit me.
you got it. Remember how we talked about contrast, making
Yeah.
things visually interesting?
Yeah.
The book uses Odeman as a great example. Their logo, it's bold, graphic. But then, get this, they use that same idea in their actual spaces.
Like their offices and stuff.
Exactly. They take that boldness, but then mix it with softer textures, more subtle designs.
So it's not just like, bam, logo everywhere.
Nope. It's that contrast that makes you stop and look, keeps it interesting.
Makes sense. What else you got?
Okay, CastArt. They are all about color and doing it right. Remember color psychology?
I've talked about it, yeah. Blue for trust, how different cultures see color differently.
Well, CastArt has this whole palette. It's vibrant, but also sophisticated, and they use it everywhere. Website, packaging, their stores.
It's a whole mood, huh?
Totally. Like
Yeah.
you're stepping into their world, you see those colors, you know it's CastArt.
A visual signature.
And it reinforces what they're about. Creativity, being an individual, they're not afraid to stand out.
Love it. But what about smaller companies? Can they do this cool stuff if they don't have tons of money?
Totally. The book uses Smokehouse Market. They're smaller, but doing great branding, simple logo, but they've built a whole program around it.
That's their secret.
They do variations of their logo, like on their packaging, it's always recognizable.
But slightly different each time.
Yep. Same core elements, but with little tweaks to keep it fresh.
Shows you don't need a giant budget, just smart ideals.
And knowing your audience. Word World, they make stuff for kids. So guess what? Their branding is bright, colorful, playful.
Makes sense. You wouldn't use the same style for, like, a luxury car.
Exactly. Okanagan Spring, they're a brewery, craft beer. They know their customers like natural, handmade stuff.
So their branding has that same vibe.
Earthy colors, images of nature, craftsmanship. They're selling that whole feeling.
Not just the beer itself.
Hmm?
Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. You got to figure out who you are as a brand and then stick to it.
Consistency, yep. But also, keep it evolving. Like Umbra Ltd, they're huge EE, global company.
Hard to keep it all together when you're that big.
But they do. Their branding's recognizable no matter where you are. Or look at Ella Bay College. Their logo's timeless, elegant.
Instant feeling of history and quality.
And Newfoundland, they sell used furniture. Their logo's like a little seed. Get it? Like you're going to discover something unique in their store.
I get it. It's clever.
And Kukuland, their tagline is be pure, be free. It tells you exactly what they're about.
Man, all these brands, they each have such a strong personality.
That's the key. You got to have a point of view, something that makes you stand out. Just a logo ain't enough. Got to have a story behind it.
Okay, this is all amazing, but also kind of overwhelming. So much to think about. Where do you even start with all this?
The book says it starts with an idea, and good ideas, they can come from anywhere.
So be open to inspiration.
Totally. And do your research. Like
Yeah.
the designers for Service Source, they did workshops, focus groups.
Really getting into the client's head.
Because if you don't understand what they're about, you can't build a brand for them.
So inspiration, research.
And hard work. Building a brand takes time. You got to keep refining, testing, adapting.
No shortcuts. So big picture. What's the main lesson here?
Good design, it's not about pretty pictures. It's about solving problems, making people feel something, understanding your brand, your audience, telling the right story.
It's all connected, huh?
It all matters. Being genuine, being strategic. Because a strong brand, that's what helps you succeed.
Man, this deep dive has been awesome. I'm seeing logos in a whole new way now.
Glad to hear it. And remember, this is just the start. The world of branding, it's always changing. So keep learning, keep exploring.
And keep listening to The Deep Dive. We'll be back soon with another topic to get you thinking. Thanks for joining us. So you've been exploring design thinking for a while now, right?
Yeah, definitely getting into it.
That's awesome, because today we're going to take a deep dive into a book that really digs into it. Design Thinking for Strategic Innovation, What They Can't Teach You at Business or Design School.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this one.
Yeah, and I think it's going to uncover some interesting insights that maybe you haven't even thought about.
Well, I'm all ears.
Awesome. So right off the bat, the book makes a pretty bold claim that design thinking isn't just some trendy thing. It's actually like a huge shift in how we think about management.
What paradigm shift, huh?
Exactly. And it argues that this shift is here to stay.
That's a big statement.
It is. And then it goes on to critique like traditional management, the kind that's obsessed with efficiency and predictability.
Yeah, that old school way of doing things.
Right. And it says that those old ways are actually failing in today's world.
Well, yeah, things are changing so fast these days.
Exactly. So clinging to those old models is kind of a recipe for disaster.
Makes sense.
So what's the alternative?
Well, the book presents design thinking as the answer. It's like the antidote to this.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it emphasizes this like human-centric approach, you know?
Putting people first.
Exactly, and it's all about being creative, experimenting, and actually being okay with failing.
So not being afraid to try new things.
Right, because that's how you learn and grow.
I'm always fascinated by those companies that just seem to always be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, they just get it.
And the book talks about this idea of strategic foresight and how design thinking can actually help businesses deal with uncertainty and make better decisions.
Yeah, that's key in today's world.
Absolutely. And one of the concepts it really digs into is understanding these weak signals.
Weak signals.
Yeah, like these subtle hints of change that are happening, but often go unnoticed.
Oh, so like those little things that could end up being a big deal later on.
Exactly. And the book says that these signals can have a huge impact on the future.
Can you give me like an example of that?
Yeah, totally. So think about Netflix.
Okay, yeah.
They saw the shift towards streaming early on. They picked up on those weak signals that everyone else missed.
And Blockbuster didn't.
Exactly. And we all know how that turned out.
Oh, not a good ending for Blockbuster.
Right. It's crazy how a seemingly small misstep can completely change the game.
It really shows how important it is to be aware and adaptable.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the problems with traditional management and how crucial strategic foresight is.
Right.
But how does design thinking actually help businesses grow?
That's where storytelling comes in.
Storytelling.
Yeah. It might sound a little weird, but the book makes a really strong case for how powerful storytelling can be for growth.
So it's not just about numbers and data.
Nope. It's about connecting with people on a deeper level.
Okay, so let's say I'm trying to get my team excited about a new project.
Right.
How can I use storytelling to do that?
Think about it like this. Instead of just listing out the features and benefits, you want to paint a picture.
Okay, I can see that.
Imagine a customer struggling with a problem, and then bam, your project comes in and solves it.
Uh-huh. So it's like showing the before and after.
Exactly, but in a more engaging and memorable way.
And you can really draw people in with a good story.
Exactly. You want to create a narrative that captures their imagination and gets them excited about the possibilities.
That makes a lot of sense.
And the book highlights a few key ingredients for a good business story.
Like what?
For one, it should be collaborative. You want to involve multiple stakeholders in the process.
Okay, so getting input from different perspectives.
Exactly. And it should also be structured, have a clear beginning, middle, and end.
Keep people engaged.
Right. And it should be engaging. You can use different media formats, get creative.
So not just a boring PowerPoint presentation.
Definitely not. And most importantly, it should be human. It should connect with people on an emotional level.
That makes sense. After all, we're all human.
Exactly. And when you can tap into those universal desires and aspirations, you can create a really powerful narrative that drives growth and innovation.
This is giving me a lot to think about in terms of how I communicate with my team.
I'm glad to hear that.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about change.
Okay, yeah, that's a big one.
It's inevitable,
Yeah.
right? But how can design thinking help us not just adapt to change, but embrace it?
That's where the idea of sense-making comes in.
Sense-making.
Yeah, it's about moving beyond just reacting to change and actually trying to understand it from a human perspective.
So like putting ourselves in other people's shoes.
Exactly. It's about gathering both qualitative and quantitative data and interpreting it through a human lens.
So not just looking at the numbers, but also the stories behind them.
Right. And it's about asking why, not just what, when it comes to change.
I like that.
Yeah. So, for example, think about customer insights or even those hard business metrics. It's about digging deeper and understanding the human factors that are driving those changes.
So it's about considering the emotional and cultural factors that influence how people perceive and respond to change.
Exactly. And by doing so, businesses can become more agile and adaptable, able to anticipate and respond to change more effectively.
This sounds like it requires a real shift in thinking for a lot of businesses.
It does. It means moving away from purely data-driven decisions and embracing a more holistic, human-centered approach.
And the book talks about building sense-making capabilities within an organization, right?
Yeah, it's about encouraging teams to become sensors, constantly scanning the environment and interpreting what they see through a human lens.
So it's about creating a culture of curiosity and awareness, empowering everyone in the organization to contribute to understanding change.
Precisely. And by doing so, businesses can move away from that fear-based crisis mode thinking and embrace change as an opportunity for growth and innovation.
Turning fear into opportunity. I love it.
Yeah, it's a powerful shift in perspective.
But let's not forget about standardization.
Yeah.
It's often seen as essential for efficiency in business.
Absolutely.
So how does design thinking reconcile this need for standardization with its emphasis on human centricity?
Well, it's a balancing act, for sure, but design thinking doesn't completely dismiss the need for standardization.
So it's not about throwing it out the window.
No. The book acknowledges that standardization can definitely streamline processes and make things more efficient.
Okay, that makes sense.
However, it cautions against losing the human touch in the pursuit of standardization.
So it's about finding a way to humanize it.
Exactly. And it starts with recognizing that businesses are made up of people both internally and externally.
Right, we can't forget that.
And it's about understanding the culture and language that shapes how people experience the world.
So taking those things into consideration when we design things.
Exactly, whether it's product services or even internal processes.
This reminds me of something we've talked about before about the language of business.
Yeah, how we often get caught up in jargon and forget that we're ultimately dealing with human beings.
Yeah, exactly, with emotions and needs.
And the book challenges us to rethink how we talk about and represent our customers.
So like moving away from terms like target and segment.
Exactly. It's about embracing language that reflects the humanity of those we serve.
That's a really powerful shift in perspective.
It is, and it's about recognizing that every interaction, whether it's with a customer, an employee, or even a supplier, is an opportunity to create a more human-centered experience.
This is giving me a lot to think about in terms of how my own company operates.
So I'm glad to hear that.
I can see the potential for humanization to transform not just our customer interactions, but also our internal culture.
That's the beauty of design thinking. It's a framework that can be applied across the board.
From product development to organizational structure to strategic planning.
Exactly. It's about creating a more human-centered and innovative approach to everything we do.
Speaking of a creative culture, one of the key challenges the book highlights is actually fostering that kind of culture within a business.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So how does design thinking help create an environment where creativity can actually flourish?
Well, design thinking embraces a playful, experimental approach to innovation.
Okay, I like that.
It's about encouraging teams to try new things, to prototype rapidly, and to learn from their failures.
And the book talks about the importance of creating a dirty space for this, right?
Exactly. It's a space where perfectionism takes a back seat And the focus is on learning and iterating.
I love that term, dirty space,
Yeah, it's a great way to describe it.
because it suggests a place where you can get your hands dirty and not be afraid to make a mess.
Exactly. And the book highlights the benefits of rapid prototyping, such as increased team ownership, the ability to visualize possibilities, and making ideas tangible.
There's something about actually creating something, even if it's just a rough prototype, that makes an idea feel more real.
Absolutely. It brings it to life and sparks excitement and momentum.
And by encouraging a culture of prototyping, businesses
Mm.
can tap into the collective creativity of their teams.
Exactly, and unlock a wealth of innovative solutions.
I can already see how this could transform the way we approach problem solving at my company.
That's great to hear.
It's about empowering everyone to contribute their ideas and to feel comfortable taking risks.
And that brings us to another important aspect of design thinking. It's perspective on failure.
Oh yeah, how do they view failure?
It's not seen as something to be avoided at all costs.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's actually seen as a valuable learning experience.
So it's about shifting that mindset from failure is bad to failure is an opportunity to learn.
Precisely. And the book emphasizes the importance of creating a culture where failure is not punished, but rather seen as a necessary part of the innovation process.
So encouraging teams to experiment, take calculated risks, and learn from those experiences, both successes and failures.
Exactly. It's about embracing the learning process.
This is such a refreshing perspective on failure.
I agree.
I can see how it could unlock a whole new level of creativity and innovation within a business.
Absolutely. When you're not afraid to fail, you're more likely to try new things and push the boundaries.
And that's where the real breakthroughs happen.
Exactly. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about business model design.
Okay, yeah. That's a challenge that many businesses are facing, especially in today's rapidly changing world.
Absolutely. And the book stresses the importance of being willing to radically redesign business models in response to disruption.
So not just tweaking existing models, but being open to completely reinventing the way you create and capture value.
Exactly. And it cites examples like Kodak, Sony Palm, and GM, all companies that failed to adapt their models in time and ultimately paid the price.
Yeah, those are some cautionary tales for sure.
They are, and design thinking approaches business model design from a value creation perspective, starting with customer needs, not just existing capabilities.
So putting the customer at the center of your business model rather than just focusing on what you're good at or what you've always done.
Precisely. And the book highlights the concept of capital-light business models as a potential avenue for innovation.
Capital.
Yeah, it's about finding ways to create and deliver value without being weighed down by heavy investments in infrastructure or assets.
So like being more agile and adaptable.
Exactly. Think about companies like Uber or Airbnb.
Okay, yeah, they've disrupted their industries.
They have, and they've done it by leveraging existing resources and focusing on creating a seamless customer experience.
This is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
I can see how design thinking can be a powerful tool for navigating the complexities of business model design.
It is. It's about being creative and customer-centric.
But how does all of this come together in practice?
Well, that's a great question and one that we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
But one key takeaway is that design thinking is not a one-size-fits-all solution.
So there's no magic formula.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
more of a mindset, a way of approaching challenges and opportunities that puts human needs and desires at the center.
Makes sense.
And it requires a commitment from leadership to foster a culture of experimentation, collaboration, and empathy.
Okay, I'm eager to hear more about how this all comes together in the next part.
We'll definitely dive deeper into that.
Awesome. But for now, I'm definitely starting to see the potential of design thinking to transform the way we think and work.
It's a powerful framework for sure.
It's about being more human-centered, more adaptable, and more focused on creating real value for our customers and for the world around us.
Well said. I couldn't agree more. So, picking up where we left off, let's talk about turning these design thinking principles into action.
Yeah, how do we actually make this stuff happen?
Well, the book dives into this idea of rapid prototyping. It's
Yeah.
like a key tool in the design thinker's toolkit.
I've always been a hands-on learner. I find that building something, even if it's just a rough draft, really helps me solidify an idea.
Right, and that's the whole point of rapid prototyping. It encourages this learn fast, learn cheap, learn early approach.
I like that.
And it's essential in today's fast-paced business world.
Makes sense.
And the cool thing is that it's not just for designers or engineers. Anyone can do it.
So we're not talking about like 3D printed models or anything super fancy.
Not necessarily. Rapid prototyping can take a lot of different forms.
Okay.
Think simple sketches, role-playing scenarios, even basic models built with everyday materials.
I see.
It's about getting those ideas out of your head and into the world, even if they're not perfect.
So giving your ideas a physical form so you can interact with them and see how they work.
Exactly.
I can see how that would be really helpful.
And the book emphasizes the importance of creating a culture of prototyping within an organization.
Okay, so like encouraging teams to experiment and share their prototypes.
Exactly. And to learn from each other's successes and failures.
That's like creating a playground for innovation.
I love that analogy. A space where people feel safe to try new things and make mistakes without fear of judgment.
And speaking of navigating challenges, one of the biggest hurdles businesses face is staying relevant in a constantly evolving market.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
It feels like there's a new disruptor around every corner.
All the time.
So how can design thinking help us not just stay afloat, but actually thrive in this environment?
Well, the book suggests that businesses need to be proactive, not reactive.
So anticipating change instead of just reacting to it.
Exactly. It's about staying ahead of the curve.
Easier said than done, right?
It is, but there are tools and techniques that can help.
Like what?
One powerful technique is what the book calls value redefinition.
Value redefinition.
Yeah, it starts by asking some fundamental questions about your customers.
Okay.
What are the top 3 things they value most? Have those values been validated recently, and are they still relevant, or are they losing their appeal?
So it's like taking a step back and making sure you're still meeting the needs of your customers.
Exactly. And perhaps even more importantly, are there any unmet needs that you're not currently addressing?
Because those are the real opportunities.
Exactly. That's where the innovation lies.
Can you give me an example of how a company might apply this value redefinition approach?
Sure. Let's say you're a company that sells software. Traditionally, you might have focused on features and functionality as your main selling point.
Right.
But what if you dig deeper and realize that your customers are actually struggling with information overload and a lack of time?
That's definitely a pain point for a lot of people these days.
It is. So instead of just adding more features, you might shift your focus to developing tools that help users simplify their workflows and manage their time more effectively.
So you're addressing a deeper need.
Exactly, one that goes beyond just the functionality of the software itself.
That's a great example of how understanding your customers on a deeper level can lead to more innovative solutions.
And it all starts with asking the right questions.
But what about when you're operating in a market where everyone is essentially selling the same thing? How do you stand out from the crowd when differentiation becomes increasingly difficult?
That's a tough one, but the book tackles this challenge head on. It argues that in a world of extreme competition, experience design becomes paramount.
I've heard that term before, experience design, but can you break it down for me? What does it actually mean?
Sure, it's about going beyond the functional aspects of a product or service and creating a holistic, engaging experience for the customer.
So it's not just about the product itself, it's about the entire ecosystem that surrounds it.
Precisely. And design thinking emphasizes the importance of considering the emotional and cultural factors that shape those experiences.
So like, how does it make the customer feel?
Exactly. Think about brands that have managed to create a sense of community or belonging around their products.
Like those diehard Apple fans or the people who swear by a certain brand of clothing.
Exactly. Those brands have tapped into something deeper than just functionality or features. They've created an emotional connection with their customers, and that's incredibly powerful.
It's like they've created a tribe of loyal followers, people who identify with the brand and its values.
That's a great way to put it, and that sense of loyalty can be a major competitive advantage in a crowded marketplace.
Absolutely. So how do you go about creating these kinds of experiences that foster such deep connections with your customers?
The book suggests focusing on 4 key dimensions of experience: social learning, meaningful, and even geeky experiences.
Geeky. Now you've got me curious.
Think about those brands that cater to a specific niche or passion. They often create experiences that allow their customers to really geek out on what they love, whether it's fashion, technology, music, or something else entirely.
Like how some video game companies host elaborate conventions for their fans.
Exactly. They're creating an immersive experience that goes beyond just playing the game. It's about connecting with other fans, sharing your passion, and feeling like you're part of something bigger.
I'm starting to see how these different dimensions of experience can create a more holistic and engaging connection between a brand and its customers.
It's about creating a sense of belonging and shared passion.
But I imagine that designing these kinds of experiences requires a deep understanding of your target audience.
Absolutely. And that brings us back to the importance of research and insights.
So like market research.
Yes. But design thinking emphasizes the need to go beyond traditional market research methods and really get to know your customers on a human level.
So we're talking about moving beyond surveys and focus groups.
Exactly. The book suggests techniques like ethnographic research, where you observe customers in their natural environments, and contextual inquiry, where you actually engage with customers in their homes or workplaces to understand their needs and behaviors in context.
So it's like becoming an anthropologist, studying the rituals and habits of your target audience.
That's a great analogy. And by gathering these kinds of rich qualitative insights, you can begin to identify those opportunities to create truly meaningful and differentiating experiences. It's about moving beyond the what and really understanding the why behind customer behavior.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about rapid prototyping, value redefinition, and experience design. All of these tools and techniques seem to point to a common theme, the importance of human centricity in business.
You've hit the nail on the head. Design thinking is at its core a human-centered approach to innovation and problem solving.
It's about understanding and empathizing with people,
Yeah.
whether they're your customers, your employees, or even your competitors, and using that understanding to create solutions that meet real needs and desires.
Exactly. It's about putting people at the heart of everything you do.
And when you do that, you open up a world of possibilities for innovation and growth.
Absolutely. But there's one more key element that we need to discuss, and that's the power of storytelling.
We touched on that earlier in the context of growth, but I'm curious to hear more about how it plays into the broader design thinking process.
Storytelling is a powerful tool that can be used throughout the design thinking journey. It helps to communicate insights, to inspire action, and to create a shared vision of the future.
It's like weaving a narrative that connects all the different pieces of the puzzle together.
Exactly. And the book highlights some key principles for crafting effective stories in a business context.
Can you give me an example of what that looks like in practice? I'm always looking for ways to improve my storytelling skills.
Sure. Think about how you present a new product idea to your team. Instead of just listing the features and benefits, try framing it as a story. Imagine a customer facing a specific problem and then show how your product helps them overcome that challenge.
So it's like showing the before and after, but in a more engaging and memorable way.
Exactly. And by incorporating elements like conflict resolution and emotional resonance, you can create a story that captures the imagination and inspires action.
So it's not just about conveying information, it's about connecting with people on an emotional level.
Precisely. And when you can do that, you can create a powerful narrative that drives innovation, builds relationships, and propels your business forward.
This has been an incredible journey so far. I'm starting to see how all these different elements of design thinking come together to create a more human-centered and innovative approach to business.
I'm glad to hear that.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear more about how companies are actually putting these principles into practice.
That's a great question, and one that we'll explore in the next part of our conversation.
I can't wait to hear more. It's inspiring to see how design thinking is transforming the way companies operate and create value in the world. All right, so we've covered a ton in our deep dive into design thinking for strategic innovation.
Yeah, it's been a pretty comprehensive look.
We've really challenged those traditional management ideas and explored, the power of storytelling.
Human centricity, that whole thing.
Exactly. It's been a pretty wild ride.
It has.
But now I'm really curious to see, how does all this stuff actually work in the real world?
Yeah. How do companies actually implement these ideas?
Right. How do they make design thinking part of their company culture?
Well, the book makes it clear that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Okay, so no magic formula.
Nope, no magic formula and no rigid process that guarantees you'll be successful.
So it's not just about following a set of steps.
It's more about a mindset, a way of approaching problems and opportunities that always puts people first.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you actually build that kind of mindset within a whole organization?
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of effort, but it starts with leadership really embracing this new way of thinking.
So leading by example.
Exactly. And one of the most important things leaders can do is empower their teams.
Give them the freedom to try new things.
Exactly. Give them the space to experiment and take ownership of their projects.
So it's kind of like creating that dirty space we were talking about before.
Exactly. A safe environment where people can be creative and not be afraid to make mistakes.
I like that a lot.
And it's not just about a physical space either.
Okay, so what else?
It's also about providing the resources, the training, and the support that teams need to really thrive.
So empower your teams, create that safe space for experimentation.
Right. And another big one is embracing diversity.
Diversity of thought.
Exactly. Design thinking really thrives on collaboration between people with different skills and backgrounds.
So building teams with a mix of perspectives.
Exactly, because that's where the real innovation comes from. When you have people challenging each other's assumptions.
And pushing the boundaries.
Right. And of course, we can't forget about the customer.
Right, keeping them at the center of everything.
Exactly. And that goes back to that idea of co-creation, involving your customers in the design process as much as possible.
So they're not just passive consumers.
Right. They're active participants helping to shape the products and services that you offer.
I love that. And it all comes back to those human-centered research methods we talked about before.
Exactly. Really understanding your customers' needs and desires.
So empower your teams, create a safe space, embrace diversity, and involve your customers. It sounds like a recipe for a truly innovative and human-centered organization.
It definitely is, but there's one more crucial ingredient.
Okay, what's that?
A willingness to embrace failure.
There it is, that word failure.
Yeah, it's so important that you have to be okay with making mistakes.
It's about seeing failure as a learning opportunity.
Exactly, and encourage a culture of experimentation where people feel safe to take risks and learn from their experiences.
Both the successes and the failures.
Right, because both are valuable.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I have a much better grasp on what design thinking actually is and how to use it.
I'm glad to hear that.
And the book wraps up with this really powerful statement. In a world where everyone wants to disrupt design thinking, allows you to be the architect of your own future. What do you think the author meant by that?
I think it's all about taking control. Not just reacting to change, but actually shaping the future that you want to see.
So being proactive instead of reactive.
Exactly. And design thinking gives you the tools and the mindset to do that.
So it's about becoming the disruptor, not the disrupted.
Exactly. And that's a really powerful idea.
It is. And on that note, I want to thank you for joining me on this deep dive into design thinking for strategic innovation.
It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. And to everyone listening out there, we encourage you to embrace these principles of design thinking and start building the future that you want to see.
Go out there and be the architects of your own destinies.
Yeah. Until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep pushing the boundaries. All right, ready to dive into something kind of different today.
Always up for a challenge.
Let's talk design entrepreneurship.
Sounds interesting.
We'll be exploring the design entrepreneur, turning graphic design into goods that sell. It's packed with stories of designers who, decided to make their own products.
Went from concept to creation. I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our mission here, to figure out what drives these designers and how they turn their passions into, real businesses.
It's kind of fascinating, though, this idea of designers as entrepreneurs. It's not exactly brand new. Think about William Morris's arts and crafts movement back in the late 1800s.
Yeah, he was all about beautiful, handmade objects for everyday use.
Right. Yeah, and he sold them directly to the people, kind of like a 19th century Etsy.
Wow, that's a great comparison. The book also mentions the Bauhaus and the Soviet constructivists. Seems like designers have always had this entrepreneurial itch, no matter what's happening in the world.
Totally. And that drive is a key theme in the book, right? That entrepreneurial spirit that pushes designers to go beyond client work and bring their own products to the world.
Yeah, it's like they're not just designing for someone else's vision, they're making their own dreams happen. But let's be real, going from a design concept to an actual product, that can be scary. We often think of designers as the creative types, not necessarily business-minded. Is that a fair assumption?
There's a bit of truth to that. Designers haven't always had the business skills needed to, make and market their products.
So how are they doing it now?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Technology is changing everything. New tools and resources are making it so much easier for designers to handle things like production and marketing, even selling directly to customers online.
That's pretty encouraging, actually. So this world is opening up, allowing more designers to become entrepreneurs without needing, huge investments or factories.
Exactly. And what's really cool? A lot of the most successful products are coming from a designer's personal experiences and passions.
So it's not just about aesthetics. They're solving problems they've faced, filling a need from their own lives.
Absolutely. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Right. Any specific examples from the book that really show this?
Definitely. The book talks about Deborah Adler. She was a design student, and she actually created a whole new system for labeling prescription drugs. It was inspired by, a personal tragedy. And get this, Her design ended up being adopted by Target.
Wow, that's incredible. So you don't always need some big corporate client to make an impact. Sometimes the best ideas come from within.
Totally. But even with a great idea, you still need to, well, make it a reality. That's the business side of
Yeah,
things.
does the book get into that?
Oh, absolutely. The book emphasizes having a solid business plan, even for small ventures.
I can imagine some designers might resist that. Spreadsheets and profit margins don't exactly scream creativity, right?
It might seem counterintuitive, but understanding things like unit cost, pricing, and marketing, that's all crucial. Turns a good idea into a successful product.
So even if you're starting small, you got to think like an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and that brings up another misconception. You don't have to do it all alone. The book debunks this myth of the lone wolf entrepreneur. Collaboration is key.
So designers can partner with specialists, right?
Uh-huh.
In manufacturing or marketing or the legal stuff.
Exactly. You can even tap into resources like SCORE and entrepreneur.com. It's about building a team, playing to your strengths.
That makes it feel a lot more achievable. But once you have a team, a product, how do you protect your work?
That's where the legal side comes in. Intellectual property.
Ah, the not so fun part, but important.
Definitely. The book has some great insights from an attorney, Frank Martinez. He really stresses registering your work for copyright protection.
So no more sketching designs on napkins and just hoping for the best.
Napkins are fine for brainstorming, but yeah, when it comes to final designs, you need to formalize things. He also talks about the difference between licensing and selling your designs and how to negotiate with clients and vendors.
Okay, so it sounds like there's no single path to becoming a design entrepreneur. You can build a whole business, focus on one-off products, or even license your ideas to companies that already exist.
You got it. And the book explores this through a bunch of different case studies.
Designers tackling everything from social issues to just those everyday problems.
Yeah, using their creative vision.
I'm really curious to hear about some of these stories. What kinds of products have these designers brought to the world?
Well, there's this project called San Ernesto.
San Ernesto.
Yeah, it's by Luisa Gloria Mota Velasco. And it's about using design to tackle corruption in Mexico.
Whoa, using design to fight corruption. How does that even work?
She creates these really striking visuals. Like, there's this votive figurine with a mirrored face. It's meant to make you think about your own role in things. Like, are you part of the problem or the solution?
That's powerful. So it's more than just a pretty object. It's starting a conversation, making people question things.
Exactly. A lot of these designers, they want to make a positive impact.
I can definitely see that.
Like Jungmin Kim, for example. She created Rapture.
Rapture. Okay, tell me more.
It's reusable gift wrap, eco-friendly, but still beautiful.
Oh, that's a great idea. I hate all the paper waste from wrapping gifts.
Right, so it's practical and it's addressing an environmental concern.
Are a lot of the designers in the book focused on sustainability?
Definitely a growing trend. But sometimes it's about solving those smaller, everyday annoyances. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, those moments where you think, there has to be a better way to do this.
Exactly. That's where someone like Andy Otis comes in. He has a line of urban cycling accessories called Apply.
For city bikers.
Yep. Carrying handles, seat covers, all kinds of practical stuff.
That makes so much sense.
You're right.
City biking is getting more popular, but yeah, carrying things on a bike can be a pain.
Right. So he saw a need and came up with a design solution. A lot of times these solutions come from a very personal place,
Oh, like what?
like Jennifer Penapinto's Missu.
Misu. What's that?
It's a system of stacking bowls. They're color-coded for measuring portions.
Wait, really?
Yeah, she came up with the idea because she was trying to, manage her own portion sizes.
Oh, that's so smart.
Mm,
Simple idea, but so useful.
right.
It seems like these designers aren't just making products. It's like they're telling stories, solving problems from their own lives. It's really personal.
I think that's a big part of it, yeah.
As you were reading all these stories, what were some things you noticed? Like, what makes a design entrepreneur successful?
Well, one thing that stood out was this ability to see a need and offer a solution. It's not enough to just create something beautiful. It
Yep.
has to be functional, relevant, and address a need.
Right, like you were saying before, necessity is the mother of invention.
Totally.
But even with a great product, things change all the time, right?
Mhm.
How important is it for designers to be adaptable?
Oh, that's huge. These designers, they're not afraid to experiment, change directions, adjust based on feedback.
The design world moves so fast, you got to be able to keep up.
Yeah, for sure.
But how do they even know if their idea is, a good idea? If people will actually want to buy it?
That's where market research comes in. The successful ones, they don't just assume people will love their product, they do their homework, you know?
So even though it's a creative field, you still need to be data-driven.
Exactly. It's about blending that creative intuition with a smart understanding of the market. And something else that's often overlooked is the power of telling a good story.
You mean like a brand story?
Yeah. If designers can connect with their audience emotionally, share their values, that makes a huge difference.
That makes sense. People want to feel connected to the person or the mission, right?
Totally. And the book really showcases this range of stories. Some designers are working solo from their homes. Others have built these huge teams, global brands.
So there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. It's about finding the path that works for you, your goals, your vision.
I love that. Okay, I'm ready to hear about some more of these designers and their products.
There's one designer, Kelly Anderson. Her work is amazing.
What's so special about her?
She does these paper-based designs, but they're, functional.
Paper-based? What, like origami?
Kinda, but way more complex. Think working record players made entirely of paper.
Wait, hold on. A record player made of paper. That's even possible.
I know, right? And she does pop-up books with all these crazy moving parts, even a pinhole camera, all made of paper.
That's blowing my mind a little bit. How does she even figure that out?
She combines, her knowledge of paper mechanics with her design skills. It's wild. It really pushes the boundaries of what's possible with
It
design.
makes you wonder what other rules are out there just waiting to be broken.
Right. And, her work also highlights the importance of craftsmanship. In a world of mass production, her pieces really stand out.
It's like going back to that arts and crafts idea we were talking about, but with a modern twist.
Yeah, I think people are craving that connection to something handmade, unique.
Do you think we'll see more of that, this focus on craftsmanship?
Definitely. Especially as people get more conscious about, where their products come from. And speaking of being conscious, the book also features designers who are tackling social issues.
Oh, yeah, I'm always interested in that. Design can be such a powerful tool for good.
For sure. Like Emily Piloton, for example.
What does she do?
She's an architect, a designer, and she founded Project H Design.
Project H.
Yeah, it's this organization that uses design to, empower communities.
So like community-based projects.
Yeah, they do sustainable housing, mobile classrooms, community gardens, all kinds of stuff. And they have this program, Studio H, where they teach high school students design and building skills.
That's so cool. They're giving young people real-world skills, AD, helping the community.
Exactly. It's design with a purpose, making a real difference.
I love that. It's so inspiring to see designers using their creativity not just to make cool things, but to make the world a better place.
It's more than just aesthetics, right? It's about solving problems, big and small.
This whole conversation has been amazing. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what it means to be a design entrepreneur.
It's such a cool field, right?
Yeah, it really is. What would you say to someone out there who, has an idea, but they're not sure what to do with it?
I'd say don't ignore that spark. Explore it, even if it seems a little crazy. The world needs more people who are willing to, break the mold, solve problems, make things happen.
I love that. Don't ignore the spark. Great advice. Well, to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to dive into the world of design entrepreneurship. Find what you're passionate about and go for it.
There are so many possibilities out there.
And if you're looking for more inspiration, definitely check out The Design Entrepreneur. It's a fantastic resource.
You'll be amazed at what these designers have accomplished.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into design entrepreneurship.